Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Langman. I'm the mayor of the Village of Warfield and also the chair of the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary. We're back here again today to give you a little bit of an update with Chris Marsh, our emergency management, our emergency manager. We have Roly Russell, who is our director as well, and Brian Taylor, mayor of Grand Forks. We're all here working really hard together during a really uncertain time. We've got a great team on the ground who's really working across the region just to make sure that everybody stays safe, and we're putting efforts into areas that are deemed really higher priorities. So we have sandbags and sand available across the region, and we're just making sure that everyone's included as part of the planning and implementation part of things. So I'll pass this over to Chris to give some more technical details here.
Thank you, Chair Langman. My name is Chris Marsh, and I'm the Emergency Operations Center Deputy Director for this event. I'm going to share my screen with everyone, and we'll take a look at some of the conditions that we're seeing. So, as everyone will know, we did see some significant thunderstorms last night, and then, of course, followed by significant rain, which is exactly what was forecast. The good news is that, well, good news for us, but not so great for some of our partner agencies. We have seen most of the rain move off to the east, and so our headwaters at this point haven't been impacted by the high levels of rain that had been forecast. So if we look at the Granby River here, we see a fairly decent spike, but you know, staying within the parameters that we have seen over the last few weeks, which is good news. Looking at current conditions for the West Kettle River, again, looking fairly reasonable. A bit of a spike today, but still lower than what we saw last week. Looking at the Kettle River near Westbridge, again, climbing today, partially because of the warmer temperatures over the last couple of days and partially because of the rain that we saw. And if we look at the NOAA forecast out of Washington State, we can see that they are predicting a climb to 18.5 right now. We are moving up that curve as we speak based on the rain that we've seen over the last 24 hours. Looking forward to the Kettle River peaking tonight or tomorrow. So if we look at the weather radar, it's kind of messy this morning, but we can see Grand Forks kind of down here in the middle of the screen. We did see a system this morning move sort of through the West Kettle area. Did bring some rain, significant rainfall amounts, particularly in the south end of our region. Grand Forks, when we last checked, had received 43 millimeters of rain in the last 24 hours, but thankfully not nearly as much in the Rock Creek area or in the north end of the watershed. So that's good news for us. So as far as Emergency Operations Center objectives, we are continuing with the installation of temporary flood works. We've achieved a lot of our objectives, and I'm happy to see the downtown core of Grand Forks protected, along with some other spots like Rockwall and Interfor. But I did want to talk a little bit about protective works in Johnson Flats. We did meet with staff from Water Stewardship this morning on site, and our operations section did have a look at the situation there. Based on rising water levels, saturated soils, and the concerns around if we transfer risk or we increase erosion by putting in temporary works, the water stewardship staff advised us that we shouldn't install any protective works at this point. So I know that's disappointing to a lot of folks, but that's the situation that we unfortunately have to deal with. So there has been a fair amount of discussion over the last few days around the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund grant, and that there was some work identified for Johnson Flats, and that is true. The work that had been proposed for Johnson Flats, and it is very much in the planning stage, is really around riverbank protection, but it's not around elevating riverbanks or building flood protection structures. And it's due to the challenging hydrological nature of that area and the incursion of groundwater and things like that. So it is a very, very difficult place to protect, and likely property level protection is the best bet there, but there'll be more to come on that in the coming days. Of course, our focus in the Emergency Operations Center is all across the boundary, and we're working with division partners or a combination of municipal staff and volunteers who are advising us on current conditions, right from Big White down through Beaverdale, Christian Valley, Midway, Greenwood, and in Christina Lake as well. And so while the bulk of our efforts are focused in the city of Grand Forks, we're maintaining a very healthy situational awareness of what's going on all across the boundary. And of course, we're concerned with the welfare of the residents all across that region. We're working as well with a number of partner agencies. We do have extensive evacuation alerts in place right now. So working with our partners at Interior Health to make sure that all of their clients are looked after if they're in the evacuation alert area. Also working very closely with folks like Ministry of Forests and Lands and Natural Resource Operations. Of course, we have the wildfire crews in Grand Forks helping us with temporary works right now, and working very closely with Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure so that we can maintain our transportation routes, and we don't have any major issues at this point. Again, I just want to, reflect on how stressful this is for everyone. We certainly understand the stress that everybody's feeling, and just know that, your team here in the Emergency Operations Center is with you through this, and looking forward to river levels receding here in the coming days. So thank you very much. I will pass it over to Mayor Taylor with the City of Grand Forks.
Thank you, Chris. Brian Taylor, Mayor of Grand Forks. I had an opportunity this morning to visit the work sites, and as Chris mentioned, a lot of the activity at this point is in Grand Forks. The downtown core has had the tiger dams put in place. I'm very impressed with the experience management. There was concerns in the past about how fast tiger dams could go in and whether people really had the experience. They do, and they're well organized. So I think there's a general appreciation from the city towards all of our workforce that are out there and the things that are getting done. So a sense of confidence. The raising of the road on 68th is almost done. I think most of the tiger dams are in place. We really appreciate the manpower that's come in from forestry. That's made a big difference in giving us the manpower to really make some of these things happen. So again, I think there's a high morale between staff and volunteers in the whole of the Grand Forks area. Thank you very much, and pass it on to Director Russell.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, just to reiterate, some of the messages I guess we've heard. This is all extremely stressful for us, and I think 2018 is a little too raw for most of us in our minds to want to be going through this again. So thanks for the clear updates on those plans around Johnson Flats, particularly. Chris, appreciate that. Know that for rural Grand Forks, right now, Manly Meadows and Johnson Flats are both areas of particularly high concern. So if you are living in those areas, please pay attention and keep on top of updates as they are forthcoming from the RDKB. I think, again, we've been in conversation with this over the last couple of weeks, but it's clear we need to have a conversation, a neighborhood conversation with Johnson Flats, and that would involve the City of Grand Forks and myself as Area D, to really make sure everybody understands what the longer term options are in terms of flood risk mitigation or reduction in that area, and really what the relative roles of local government versus personal protective measures and so on, including DMAF and so on, as Chris had mentioned, so that we're all on the same page in terms of what it looks like going ahead. And I guess to wrap, I think a lot of us are paying a lot of attention to our forecasts right now, and things are looking pretty good. That risk appears to be dropping, but just a reminder that there's still an enormous amount of unpredictability in terms of what rain is actually going to come in the next 48 hours, and that has a huge bearing on what's going to happen in our river system. So please continue to be attentive. And as a reiteration of that message that we're all in this together, a lot of the rain that was potentially forecast for our area came down in our DCK in our neighbors to the east, and so we're thinking about them as well, because they ended up having a lot of risk elevation there. given that we didn't get some of that rain that was potentially forecast here. I know everyone's getting more and more tired. And so again, thanks to all those residents, the business owners that have been out there working hard to protect their property, as well as our emergency response group, who is really working overtime to make sure everybody's safe. So I feel like we're almost there, but it's going to be a long 48 hours, I think, before we get there. So thanks everyone, stay attentive and take care.